And this part is probably the best part of this ride. I will say, of every piece of this, when I rode this ride, this was it. So Test Track 3.0 has been open for a couple of weeks now at the time of filming of this, and honestly, I've been waiting to talk about this. So we all remember the original, which was raw, fast, and exciting, and it sort of captured what it was like to be a crash test dummy inside of the cars they're testing for the road. Then 2.0 came along, and for a lot of us, it just lost the heart of what made Test Track truly special. And now with 3.0, Disney's really trying to fix that. And I've got some thoughts on whether or not Disney's really pulled it off. And if you're new here, my name is Mickey, and I've been a creative director and a colorist in the TV and film industry here in New York City for better part of a decade. And through that lens on this channel is where I imagine and design new theme park attractions for Disney and Universal. Also, I want to mention real quick, I've been working on a new ride concept video for a ride at Epic Universe. It's going to be a Creature from the Black Lagoon ride. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming to the channel very soon. And also just a note that what you see on YouTube, these videos for the ride concepts, are just kind of a fraction of what goes into making them. When I design these rides, I'm crafting them from the ground up, like I'm actually working for Disney. I'm making it so I can just hand over the pitch deck or the sort of previs over to the design team so they can get to work as soon as possible, figuring out what's next, what's the first steps to get these things actually made and put into production. So if you want to see even more of the detail that doesn't even make it to YouTube, go over and sign up on my Patreon. You can get access to all of that right away, and it helps support me as a creator. So I think it'll be useful first to talk about my first impressions of the ride from what I noticed when I was on it. What are the things that stand out in the good way, a bad way? What are some of the story things, the visuals? What kind of jumps out at you? I think as a creative director, I'm always thinking about every piece of the puzzle from the first time you're interacting with a thing. So whether it's an advertisement or it's an attraction at a theme park, what is your first eyesight or touch with an object or an attraction? So from moment one, what are we introduced to? What are we seeing? So I think when it comes to something like Test Track, it's a pretty big building and you can see it kind of far off. So I think your first interaction is going to be the sight line from wherever you are in the park, seeing it from afar, and what does it give off to you? And I think the building itself is a really cool building. That just big circular reflective building is something that's really striking. And now with the new one, it's actually a lot easier to see than in past versions. But let's dive into it here. All right, so already we can see that the architecture is pretty similar walking in up front. This looks very similar to 2.0. So I can pull it up here. Slightly different, but very similar, sort of like little squared off archways here. But you'll notice that it feels much more inviting this time. The color's more muted and cool. And I think it makes me kind of want to walk in versus the other one just felt a little bit less inviting. But let's dive into this and play it down. So here's 3.0 entrance. Still kind of rocking with the, concept car thing. Just feels like a bit of a showroom you're walking through. Again, if you compare this to the original walkthrough, the original queue here, I mean, there's just so much happening in this queue. Just stuff moving and noise and all of that stuff. So to me, this is like, snooze fest here. I get it. I totally understand what they have to do and what they're up against as Imagineers. And there's a budget and they're like, how can we do this? Because I think the budget is always smaller for a redo, for a refresh. I mean, how can we do this and really make the most of it? So I think that, they put in a lot of effort here, but it's really hard to capture that original spirit. One of the things we can see already is like, all right, nice new paint job. The cars look like they got a little bit of extra, something going on. They got this nice little light on the front here. I think overall, though, it just is kind of a paint job for the cars. And then we've got the opening to the ride. Let's get to it here. Same thing, going up the same. The sides are just, pretty stuff happening, shapes and things. But let me just play a little bit of it with the sound here so we can actually see it together. Give me 1 second.
You have to start by looking at the world of today a little differently.
That's where I can help. Let me show you how I see the world.
By using advanced cameras and sensors, vehicles are constantly scanning the road ahead helping to prepare us for any surprises.
So, this section here, this is the part where I talked about this in my other video, so if you didn't already see it, I did a whole video on 5 rides Disney needs to upgrade, refresh, fix before they kind of get caught with their pants down, because, you know, Epic Universe is here, and there's definitely a lot of rides that need to be refreshed to sort of keep up with the times. Test Track was one of them, but obviously they're already doing it. But in my video, I kind of talk a little bit about where they landed with the storyline in this. And at first, it definitely sits heavily in the sort of automated self-driving car thing, and I think it's mildly interesting here where you get to see kind of what the self-driving car sees, like what the LiDAR would see all around you. This is kind of what we're seeing here. Let me just play a little bit more of it here so we can see it together. So yeah, like this section here, again, another near miss moment, which I think they have in here twice, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so they've got this little effect that I'm sure they put a lot of, they're very proud of, where they, let me just backtrack a little bit so you can see it again. You've got this set here where it looks, okay, like this like town or something like that, and then it transitions to the LiDAR looking version of it. Look, I'll give it to them. It's pretty cool. But my bigger problem is overall with the overall story. It's like we're just sitting with like, oh, this is the future of cars. And I feel like the missed opportunity here is they could have done more than just that. Like, we obviously get it. We're in the future. We have AI. We have robots. We have self-driving cars. I know, I guess that's kind of weird to say that, oh, that's kind of boring. But I think that they could sit with something even deeper here. Look, I did a whole video on it, obviously. I think they could have gone back in history and done a nod to like an old Model T car, like some of that old stuff we saw a little bit in the original queue there. They could give us a journey through time to show off. Look, if they're really making a... EPCOT is this... Can I speak freely? Can I just speak about what's under the hood, so to speak? Every single ride that has a sponsor like GM or Kodak or whoever at EPCOT, they're just making a propaganda piece for their company. Now, however you feel about big corporations, let's throw that to the side. It's obvious that this is what they're doing. They're making propaganda pieces in ride form instead of like a commercial form. And so here, I think if you were like, hey, what's the best piece of propaganda we can make for General Motors? And I'm not saying this necessarily as like a negative thing, just like this is what it is. In my world, from what I come from as a creative director and a filmmaker, you know, I like to think that I work in advertising a lot, and advertising is really, you know, it's a propaganda piece. It's spell casting, really, is what we're doing with advertising. We're trying to cast a spell to get you to purchase an item. This is, if you never heard it phrased this way, sorry to be the one to break it to you. This is sort of like, is what it is of that industry. But here, if you wanted to make a good propaganda piece for GM, I would have gone back in the history of time. I would have started with the beginning, what was happening, what made things come to fruition, you know, different kind of motors that came to be, you know, big V8, V10, V12 power motors, what's inside of them. Like, again, I did a whole video on it. I think there's so much more richness they could have tapped into with the cars. And again, it gives a little bit of a nod to the older generations of people who remember World of Motion and the original Test Track as well. They could have had a little area here that had a bit of a crash test dummy aspect to it. You know, maybe they could have weaved that back in a little bit. And can you imagine if they had a little section that had it feel like a little bit of the old school from the original in here? Everyone on here, all these Disney nerds, we'd all be like, whoa, the number 3 is so great. And they reference the original. Chef's kiss, right? Missed opportunity, if you ask me. But they didn't do that. So let's get back to what they did do here.
Power transfer complete.
Sparks.
All right, so we go into our second set here, which I love. I think grounding this all in like an actual set piece is really important, especially comparing it to the last version. This is pretty cool. We go through a little garage here.
Imagine being able to customize your vehicle at home.
Can I show them?
Go for it.
This part of the ride is kind of strange to me. There's still... Yeah, so you see, like, they're leaning into this, like, customization bit. And I'm calling it a bit for a reason. I don't really understand what this is. Like, there's no car that you just press a button and customize, you know, aside from your, like, heated seats or something. There's no... So this part is a little strange to me. I'm not really sure where they were going with this part. So then this part of the ride is where the thrills really start to kick in. This has always been traditionally like a drive through the forest, but now we actually have the forest back. We have some trees again, and it feels like a summer afternoon. I think they said this is more like a beach or something. I don't know. Either way, it's a nice little thrill part of it. And I like this section here because we have a screen here integrated, and I know a lot of people don't love screens being integrated into all of the attractions, but I'm a fan of it. I think if used right, it can be kind of powerful. And like right here is a perfect example of like just kind of static, but they can add some little bits of movement here to give it a bit of life. And so you're going around the corner really fast, and it kind of like fits in with the background. I think it's a nice little addition here.
Watch out!
I told you, I got this.
What?
See, she told you, she got it. So the autonomous car saved you once again. Except for unless it's like a Tesla or something where, I don't know if you've seen online recently where they've been failing these tests when it's supposed to stop short when a child goes in front of the car. But anyways, you know, we had to keep that in there, of course. It's a nice little moment. I think it's a real traumatic moment, you know, in like a good way. You're not expecting it unless you know the ride very well, and so I think it's a cool moment to keep in there. Doesn't matter if it looks, you know, futuristic and, you know, autonomous now.
Our road might have had some twists and turns, but the future is always just around the corner.
And together, we keep moving forward, finding new ways to drive to a brighter tomorrow.
Ready to see what else lies beyond the horizon?
And this part is probably the best part of this ride. I will say, of every piece of this, when I rode this ride, this was it. I think right here where you see this whole screen enveloped all around you is them using a screen really well. I was just saying a second ago that the other screen was a nice little touch around that corners to give us a little bit of extra realism. However, here, let me go back to it here so you can see it. This is perfect. This is, if there was a way to really transition you out of this part into the outside world, especially with this new concept here, I think this is the perfect way to do it. Because if you recall, this was, in the original one, which I'll pull up in a second, the moment where you saw the car that was like all crashed up, and then you turn a corner and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks like you're going to go run into this wall. The gag is dead at this point, even though it was fantastic on the original ride. But now, something here is very interesting. It has a nice mix of physical set pieces and the actual screen itself to give you this little brief moment of like, oh, okay, this is like a little futuristic place. This is kind of cool. And part of me wishes they might have done a little bit more of that. I mean, it would have been wildly expensive, I guess, but throughout the ride, like giving you a bit more sense that you were somewhere else. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have been that believable, but this is my favorite part of the ride right here.
What else lies beyond the horizon?
I think it's a great successor to the original version of this right here. I think this is a really well done ending to the ride here. And of course, this is the big thrill of the ride, going around the outside of the building. I love this part. It feels like you're in a Corvette with the top down on the highway, which I've never done. Maybe you have. And of course, if you remember here, it almost always hit like 64.9. It never hit 65, and now it always hits 65 miles an hour. But this bank turn here, let me tell you, if you're somebody who wants a thrill but you're a little afraid of roller coasters, this high-speed bank turn here is probably that middle ground you're looking for. This is a really fantastic little thrill moment on this ride. And I think they always made really good use of the space. When you consider how much they have to squeeze into a plot of land, this idea that they would just shoot out, do a little loop, and then go tight around the building. I always thought that was such an interesting use of space, where they could have built, a whole other track somewhere else, and they could have made it a big, whatever, figure eight, larger than life. They could have done a whole bunch of different things and gone deeper into the parking lot, but just circling back around that building, I feel like it was probably a nod to the General Motors, like the original World of Motion that was there, like way before Test Track. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like that was like an Imagineer really knowing, hey, this is going to give us a little homage to that, because I think the original World of Motion, as you were going up around in this like rotunda area, and then you were like coming around the side, and out the front was like a glass, and you could see out onto EPCOT. It was kind of a nice view, and so I feel like that's what this building is giving, and this big thrill moment is really like chef's kiss. All right, so for the 3.0 version of this ride, is it really an upgrade from 2.0? I think for sure it's a huge upgrade. I think they did a fantastic job with this, but as far as story goes, I think it's still lacking. I think I've said kind of a little bit throughout this, the autonomous driving car thing being anthropomorphized as well as just like this woman talking to you is a little strange overall to me. I'm not a huge fan of that part. And I'm not a huge fan of the pre-show just being non-existent. Because if you recall, and I'll bring it up here in a second, there was this amazing queue you walk through, and then there was this pre-show where you got a little more exposition and some story and some humor and just a little bit more detail and just like plussing, it was like you're really getting involved in this whole storyline before you even like saw the cars themselves. Then they would open the doors from the pre-show room, I think they called it the briefing room, and then you would start to see the cars, and it was like this moment of like, oh, okay, here's the thing we're getting in. I think we still miss all of that. 2.0 was dreadful. This, like I said, you just kind of walk into this like minimalist showroom with like, 2 cars in there. And then like the post-show is, back to sort of normal. You've got these like cars on the other side. But overall, I think if I had to rate it, I don't really like rate rides, I guess. But, it's somewhere in the like 6 to 7 out of 10 range. If, obviously I'm giving the original run like a 10 out of 10. Inside of its own framework. But what do you guys think? I think it's definitely rideable again. Like I'll get back on it. I'll ride. I mean, I did ride it, but I don't know that we should ever talk about 2.0 ever again. We should just throw that away, pretend it never happened. Definitely a huge upgrade, but it's not capturing the spirit of the original one completely. But that's probably really hard to replicate. This was you walking into this queue. You hear all that? You walk in, you got visuals, you got stuff moving around, banging, clanging, smashing, you got video screens everywhere, you got all these different car parts on the walls. Like, you walk into this, you go, whoa, what am I looking at here? This is crazy. Oh, so good. Look, even the story is starting here. They're showing you like the first cars. I don't know if this is like a Model T. No, it's not a Model T. Something like it. Something very old here. They're giving you, oh, hey, look, we're starting at the bottom here. Which is something I think they should have leaned into a lot more, and I talk about that in my video. Did I mention that already? I did a video about 5 rides Disney needs to fix. I'll put a link somewhere here so you can click on that and see my whole new concept for Test Track, what I think 3.0 should look like. But yeah, this whole area was epic, and there was even like an area where you could see what it was like when you're in a crash as a dummy, what kind of impact that would take on your chest if you were to hit like the steering wheel with your chest or like your neck. They had all these so many interesting little areas here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there's just so much to look at here. Look at this. The story is already being told. You're like, okay, we get it. This is a crash facility, or sorry, a test facility. We test out all the limits of all the cars before they go out to the real world. Here we go. Here's some of those tests. That one, the head would like pull up and then it would smack back down, and you could use your imagination what it might be like in a real car wreck. Even here, look at this. You've got, and again, this is not something that like Disney doesn't do. They still do this kind of stuff on a bunch of other rides, but they put all the detail into every piece of this. Like there's all these cork boards on the wall. It looks lived in. Look at these amazing CRT monitors, these old school giant ones. So you would watch this little pre-show here, and they would give you some exposition about...
Let's put together your test schedule. These are the same kinds of tests that are run at GM test facilities all over the world.
So anyways, that was really awesome. And then you would get into the ride itself, which looked a lot more cool. Yeah, I always love that moment. Of course, when the ABS is on, it's less exciting. Yeah, this whole like road work thing worked so well in this like dark giant room, right? Because you got key lights everywhere, but the sparseness kind of worked because they made it look like you were on a side of a road on a highway somewhere, you know? Then of course you have the heat room and the cold room and the corrosion room. These are always super cool. Yeah, if you ever rode this ride after getting wet on something else, the cold room was not very fun. Oh, and the smell. Do you guys remember the smell in this room, in the corrosion room? That sound just like brought me back. That like servo sound. I can like smell it. Ooh. Write me down in the comments down below. Do you know that smell I'm talking about from that room? Oh man, that is wild. Ah, of course, the close call. That was like traumatizing for a lot of little kids. Almost getting hit by that truck. So I want to talk about this section is my favorite. Disney does this a lot, and to be frank, I think Universal is doing it as well too, but it's small little things like this over the years that make a big difference. On certain parts of the rides, they have to use misdirection to get you from point A to point B, but they don't want to give away the surprise before you get there. This is a great example of using the track to their advantage and other elements. So watch. We come around this like corner. We just come out of this big traumatic moment with the truck. And you turn, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm relaxing. I almost got hit by a truck, but I'm okay. Okay, I'm in a garage. And then if you notice up on the right-hand side there, this very bright light, it was so blinding that you were like, whoa, because you were in this dark room, and now you're at this blinding light. So you're still a little confused. Like your brain is your eyes are trying to figure out what's going on, you know, sensitized to the room itself. And eventually, you'll see here in a second, as you turn this corner, they lower the lights down. And what does it reveal? A car that has smashed into a wall. And pay close attention, right around the corner here, it's also dark as well. And then boom, all lights on. And what do you see? It says barrier test really big. And of course, you're like, wait a minute. Are we going to go flying into that too? Because that car right there is smashed up. And then here we go. The best finale. Even there, they use the lights to blind you as they pull the doors away. It's a nice little misdirection. Like if you're under the age of 25 and it was your first time riding, that had to be like, oh my gosh, I think we're actually going to hit this thing. They just nailed the little things just right on that. I love it so much. I love the kinetic, like, push it harder, like that screaming in your ear, like it really, you're going like 60 something miles an hour. If you've been in a car, it's not that fast, right? But here you're in a car with the top down. It's like being on the highway in a Corvette or something with the top down, and you're going, your hair's blowing in the wind. It's not an experience you would get normally every day. Usually on the highway, you get like a, you know, an actual like roof to your car. But just all those little elements, just they thought about how to just amp it up that little bit the whole way. And then this bank turn here, listen, as I said before, this bank turn is a real bang for your buck. Such a fun thrill experience. Alright, so let's recap here. So Test Track 3.0, doing very well for itself. I think it's a fantastic upgrade. It's not quite the upgrade we needed, right? I think there's still this spirit of the original ride that we will never get back probably. But but it's still not there in the 3.0. But look, 2.0 is rideable, and I will ride it. I mean, you have no other choice, right? I mean, there's so many rides that are closing down and being refurbished around Disney, but so much better than the 2.0. I just wish that they could have added some other elements back in that would bring the story more cohesive throughout. Also, can you imagine if there was a moment where, like, they brought a little bit of that crash test site back into this one? I don't know exactly, I'm just spitballing here, but if there was a moment where it gave that impression to you where you felt like you were transported back to that crash test site for half a second. I mean, like one of the scenes, you know what I mean? Like, it could have been interesting of like, oh my gosh, like, oh, this harkens back to the original ride. Oh, goat. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been a very interesting moment if they found a way to weave that in somewhere in one of the rooms, one of the scenes, to give you an impression. Some little, you know, Disney's perfect for this. They always do little Easter eggs here and there. I feel like they could have done something noticeable that would have really made all the super fans go bonkers. But alas, we have what we have, and this is what we are stuck with for a little while, unless they do a 4.0, but I really doubt it. Usually after 3.0, they'll probably tear it down and put something else in place, so who knows. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you want to see more of my in-depth ride concept videos, those are coming to the channel all the time. Subscribe so you can see those. I'm going to be doing, I think, a bit more of these sort of like talking about more stuff coming to the theme parks and reacting to things at the parks. So let me know if you enjoyed this. I'm just kind of testing the waters here to see how this feels. There's so many things I want to talk about and think about, but I can't fit them all into a well-produced long video. So this is a bit more off the cuff. So if you like it, let me know down below. If not, you know what to do. Hit that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh yeah, don't forget, if you want to see more in-depth stuff, go to my Patreon. Go over to there. I also have a Discord set up, so as I said, I really like talking to you all. It's great in the comments, but if you really are a Disney nerd like me and you want to talk more and more about all things Disney, I have a Discord set up that you can join. So go over there and we can keep the conversation going there. So again, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.